ESOP companies have special relationships with their employee owners. They benefit from that. They benefit by getting engagement and a lot of contributions that maybe regular companies, conventionally owned companies, don't get. But that special relationship also comes with obligations, with duties. And I'm not talking just about fiduciary obligations. When you have a special relationship with your employee owners, that means you have a special duty to try and prevent negative behavior in the workplace. And if that behavior does take place, you really do have an obligation to try and address it quickly, effectively, and compassionately. To learn more about that, we're going to hear from Kate Manning. She's with Blackbird, and she spent 15 years in the Department of Justice helping them deal with all sorts of victim issues. Please welcome to the stage, Kate Manning.
Thank you. Hi, good morning, everybody. As you heard, I'm Kate Manning. You heard that I was with the Justice Department for many years working on victim issues. I actually have worked with victims and others in trauma for more than 25 years as an advocate, a counselor, and as a lawyer. But you don't have to work in the criminal justice system or for a nonprofit organization to be working with people in trauma. In fact, they are all around us. 21% of full-time employees reported that they were victims of domestic violence. That's a fifth. 38% of women have been sexually harassed at work, and 1 in 6 women and 1 in 33 men are survivors of sexual assault. So think about your own workplace and how many people are there and how many people are being impacted by these types of events. Obviously, these numbers are very high, but what does that mean for us at work? Does it matter? And I'm here to tell you that it does, because people don't leave these issues behind them when they walk through that office door. They carry them with them, and they are impacting your office every day. So of those 1/5 of full-time employees who are victims of domestic violence, 74% of them were harassed at work. And if you didn't know, the best indicator we have today that somebody is going to commit a mass shooting is a history of domestic violence. Teams that have sexual harassment on them lose an average of $27,000 per person in productivity because of the sexual harassment. And this last statistic really broke my heart. 50% of sexual assault survivors are either going to quit or lose their jobs within a year of the assault. And these are just these 3 types of events. There are obviously all different kinds of them that are impacting us. Alcoholism, workplace violence, divorce, illness, fraud, other kinds of financial losses. The fact is, if you work with people, you are working with people in trauma. And it is impacting you every day in terms of productivity, absenteeism, your workplace culture, right? And as a lot of organizations from Penn State to the Harvey Weinstein Corporation can tell you, sometimes these events are going to lead to bad press and even lawsuits. So the single best thing we can do to ensure that our workplace is healthy instead of toxic is to learn how to handle these issues well, is to learn how to respond appropriately when somebody says, "Me too." Now, the challenge is that's not very easy, right? It can be very hard. But it's important that we do it. It's important that we find a way to encourage people to come forward because, as a very smart man once said, sunlight is the very best disinfectant. If we allow ourselves to bury these issues, they are going to bury us. It's very important that we create an environment where people are allowed to discuss these issues, where they're allowed to talk about it so that they can be addressed. And if you can do that, you will be rewarded with a healthier workforce, better retention, higher productivity, and a whole lot of loyalty from your people. So what do we do? The challenge is, right, how do we respond? How do we encourage people to come forward and share these kinds of things so that we don't allow them to fester and not get addressed? The best thing we can do is respond well when they do, but that's harder than you think, right? It's not easy to hear those stories, and I can tell you that from my own personal experience. It's very, very difficult to sit with somebody when they are sharing with you a story of something hard that's happened to them. What I know now, after working in this field for so long, is it's a normal human reaction to feel uncomfortable in that moment. And to explain why, I'm going to have to go through a little bit of a science lesson, so I hope you'll forgive me with that. All right, so you guys have probably heard of fight, flight, or freeze, right? That's kind of a shorthand way of explaining what happens to our brains when we're in danger. We evolved in a very, very intelligent way, right? So that our brains know to automatically engage certain responses if we're in a threatening situation. It's incredible the things that'll happen immediately without any action by you. So your heart rate increases, right? Your blood starts to pump through you very, very quickly. Your eyesight actually gets better. It's incredible. You can scan the environment around you, identifying threats. All this happens without any conscious action on your part. You actually get stronger and faster, right? You've seen these videos of like mothers lifting manhole covers to get to their babies, right? That's the adrenaline that goes pumping through them when they sense danger. Our brains also start to shut down parts of our brain that are not useful in that situation. So those are parts like complex reasoning, right? That's less important in that moment. What we need to do is to be able to fight or flee, right? So complex decision making starts to slow down and shut down, and instead we get this strength, we get this adrenaline rush, okay? So that's one piece of it. The other amazing thing that we've learned in recent years is that when you are recounting the story of something threatening, something dangerous that happened to you, the same brain reaction happens as when you were in the initial threat. Like they've put people through brain scans and the same parts of your brain light up as if you were back in that threatening situation, even when you're just sitting and talking and telling the story, right? So this person, as he's recounting the story of something dangerous, his brain is having that same chemical reaction as when he was in the dangerous situation. Okay, one more piece of the science, and for that I'm going to need a little help. From this guy. Now I see you all, right? You see this and you smile. You smile automatically, right? That's called empathy. What we see others feeling, we feel ourselves, right? This is a happy baby. It makes us happy. Have you ever been at a party and seen somebody across the room who's laughing so hard that he's about to fall over, and you start to laugh even though you have no idea what he's laughing about? Or in a different context, you're watching a football game, say, okay? On TV, you're sitting in your living room watching the game, and somebody gets hit really hard. And what do? Yeah, you wince, like, oh, you're not in any danger. You're sitting on your couch, right? But still, man, you feel that hit. That's empathy, right? That's human. Feelings are contagious, and the stronger the feeling, the more contagious they are. Now, let's go back to that office situation. Somebody has been through a traumatic situation, they've had the adrenaline rush, right? Then they're coming in and they're telling you the story. Adrenaline rush, right? So what are you feeling? The adrenaline rush. You catch it from them, and it is not comfortable. Suddenly you're feeling like your hands are shaking, your heart is racing, you can't wait to get out of there, you're sort of bouncing around. All of that is a normal human reaction. And guess what we experience? That same, sorry, I can't catch it. Fight, flight, or freeze. Same thing happens to us, right? And my friends, this is where things go wrong. Things go very badly in this moment. Okay? Because we don't understand that that's what's happening. We just feel the adrenaline rush and we're not sure why, and so we instantly fall into one of these without meaning to. So fight, what does that look like? Well, that can't be true. I'm sure you're wrong about that, right? I'm gonna fight that. Flight, you know, I really don't have time for this, I gotta go, maybe you can talk to me later, right? Or my favorite is freeze, like you literally just shut down and you're thinking, I have to say something, but I have no words, right? You just freeze, it's awful. Incredibly normal human reaction. There's nothing wrong with you, it means you're an empathetic person, just not helpful in that moment. Not helpful to the tune of problematic for you, right? That's not comfortable for you. You recognize that you're not responding well and you don't like that. Not helpful for your company, right? Because this is where you start to say really, really foolish things that may one day be read back to you in a deposition, kinds of foolish things, right? This is not a good situation. And then obviously not good for the person who has come to you looking for help. So it's not bad, there's nothing wrong with us that we have this reaction, it's just not helpful in this moment. So what is it that we should be doing instead? Really, there are just 5 things in that interaction where somebody comes to you and is recounting a story of trauma that you need to keep in your head. Number 1 is listen, all right? Now listen means more than just keep your mouth shut, although honestly that's a really good place to start. Just let them talk. You obviously can engage with them and let them know that you're listening. You can say, and then what happened? You nod, right? Asking any kind of clarifying questions can be helpful. Who, what, where, when kinds of questions. Stay away from the why questions in that moment, because why can come across as blaming. Now, why did you do that? Can come across as you're blaming the person, right? So just stick with the who, what, where, when kinds of questions. Those are ways to show that you're listening, show the person that you are interested and want to hear more. Try to mirror their language. So if the person keeps referring to my mother's situation, don't say your mother's cancer, right? Just use whatever language they're using. It'll help them feel safer in that moment. And then, let's see. The third thing is your body language. Body language can be really hard because, again, we've got that adrenaline rush, right? We've got all this, energy pounding through us, and it can cause us to do things like fidget with our pens or tap our feet or, drum our fingers on the desk. Again, that's normal. We're just trying to get rid of that excess of energy that's coming from the adrenaline, but it comes across to the person talking as if we can't wait for them to finish. So what I do in that moment is I try to come up with some sort of invisible way to work off that energy. My trick is I flex my calves. Literally, I just under the desk flex my calf. Sometimes if I can get it under the desk, I'll just kind of clench and unclench my fist. Just something you can do invisibly to work off that energy. Just do it thoughtfully, right? Because you got to get rid of it somehow. It's a normal thing. It's going to happen to you, but just find a way to get rid of it. Your goal for body language is open, calm, and focused on the person, right? So you want to face them head on, make eye contact, and keep your shoulders loose, all right? So that's listen. The next one is acknowledge. Now the person has just finished sharing this story and you've been doing such a good job staying focused, you're making your eye contact, you haven't been interrupting them, you've been asking clarifying questions, they finally have wound down and they're done. And there can be a tendency to phew, good, awesome, so we're good? And then we just want to move on. That's not the best response. This person who has just shared something with you is actually in a very vulnerable position right then. Right? They've just shared something that could be very difficult for them, maybe embarrassing. They have no idea how you're going to react, and they're very worried about it in that moment. Are you going to go tell other people? Are you going to be rude to them? Are you going to shut them down? So the key thing for you is to be mindful of your response. And I will tell you, the best thing to do is to take a breath. Just take a breath, because your instincts are not going to be your friend in this moment. Give yourself one breath to think through how you're going to respond. I tell you this is hard won after many years of my own missteps here in this moment. My own instinct when I am feeling uncomfortable is I laugh. It's awful. It's awful. One of my first jobs is I was a waitress at a really busy restaurant, okay, in kind of a fancy shopping district, Georgetown in DC. And these 4 women came in. It's my first week on the job. 4 women come in and they have all these bags of fancy clothes and they all order these giant fruity drinks, okay? So I dutifully, I've got the tray with all 4 drinks and I bring them out and I'm being very, very careful and I start to hand the drink to this woman here and then the one over there says, oh no, that's mine. So I go, oh. And then what happens? All 3 drinks fall on this woman, on her lap and on her bag of new clothes. It was awful. And what did I do? Nothing appropriate. I started to laugh. I started to laugh. It was awful. And it happens to me again and again. I just know that about myself. When I am uncomfortable, I start to laugh. And so when somebody is sharing something difficult with me, I know I have to just take a breath, control my face, because if I smile, that comes across really horribly, right? So just know what your own kinds of issues are and give yourself one breath to take control of them. The next thing, after you take your breath, what is the first thing you say to them? Thank you. Say thank you. Again, because they are looking to you for, was this really dumb? Was this really, really dumb for me to share this with you or not? Are you going to honor the fact that I've just shared something very vulnerable with you? And if you can say thank you, you're showing them that you are going to respect them, right? And so this can be very easy. Thank you for sharing all that. Thanks. It sounds like you've been going through a hard time. Thank you for coming to me, right? Those are great things to say. Always, always say thank you to them for sharing that story. Other things that are good to say, I'm so sorry that you're going through all this. That's a good one. You're handling this really well. Everybody who is going through a traumatic event thinks that they're handling it badly, every single person. And so if you can tell them, you're doing a great job, what you're feeling is completely normal, all of those things can really, really help assuage what they're going through. What to avoid saying, you guys probably know some of these from your own lives, right? The things that people have said to you that really rang incorrectly. So some of them are, I know just what you're going through, right? The thing is, we don't actually know what anybody is going through. Even if you lost your sister to the same disease at the same age, it was a different experience for you than it was for this person, right? You don't actually know what they're going through. Another one that can be difficult is, God wouldn't give you more than you can handle. Okay, it's something that a lot of people will say. There's kind of two problems. One, obviously, they might not believe in God, but also, even if they do believe in God, what you're sort of saying to them is, if you're having a hard time, you're letting God down. It's awful, right? Anything along those lines, those types of statements are very, very soothing for the person giving them. It's a way to just, I'm just going to tie this up and put it down because I know you're going to be okay. Not helpful for the person who's in trauma, right? And that's who we need to be focusing on. So after that, the next step is to share information. So what I've learned over so many years of working with victims is one of the hardest things about being a victim is the loss of control. Right? You're just driving home from work and you get hit by a drunk driver and you spend the next 6 weeks in the hospital. Or you invest all of your money with this sure bet, completely safe investment advisor whose name turns out to be Bernie Madoff. And suddenly everything that you've worked for your whole life is gone, right? Out of the blue, not in your control, and you are suffering for it, right? The loss of control. So one of the things we can do when we're working with folks who are having some sort of traumatic experience like that is give them back some control by sharing information with them. Now, there's not always, we can't always share all kinds of information, but a few we can share. Facts as we know them, right? So we know that the data breach happened on October 1st at 10:15 in the morning, and these were the accounts that were accessed, right? Any facts as you know them, if you can share them, that's very, very helpful. Process information. Here's what happens next. Even if this is incredibly obvious to you, and you think it probably is to the other person as well, it's in your employee manual, or we have it on the website, or we have it spray painted on the halls in our building, still share the process information. It is incredibly soothing for a person in trauma to know that there's a process in place. So always look for process information to share. Values information can be helpful, either your company's values or even your own values. Our company has a firm commitment to employee safety, right? That's helpful for them to hear. Or I take allegations like this very seriously, and I want you to know that. Again, your values, you're sharing that information, values information with them can be very helpful. And then finally, perhaps counterintuitively, even sharing what you don't know can be helpful. And here's why. One, it shows that you're not hiding things from them, right? We don't know what happened. We're going to try to find out. Also, you can share what you're hoping to learn, right? So I'm going to have to talk to HR and find out what the process is and what we do next, right? you're telling them, I'm taking some responsibility and there will be further action. All of that is helpful. All right. The next step is empower. And this step, I think, is actually equally important for the listener as it is for the person in trauma, right? And here's why. That person who has been through a difficult event is going to have to continue on their road without you, right? You can't walk this path for them. If somebody is a victim of identity theft, they need to become an expert in identity theft very, very quickly. We can't do it for them, but we can give them resources to help them on the way. So what are some of the resources? If you're responsible for other people, if you're a manager or you work with the public, there are a few things that you should probably know about. What are your security folks at your company? How do you access them? Are there any kind of counseling or other sort of mental health services available to employees? Just be aware of that, right? If somebody comes to you and she says, my ex-husband is stalking you, are there places that you can send her? And then finally, this is if you really want to be a rock star, is to know about 211. Does anybody know about 211? You do, amazing, yeah. Hardly anybody knows about it. So 911 is emergency services, right? And 311 is non-emergency police kinds of services. 211 gives you all community services. So they can give you anything from, there's somebody in my church who I think is being trafficked, right? They can give you a resource for that, to what do I do about identity theft, to domestic violence shelters, right? All of those can be accessed through 211. You don't have to know about it, but it's a great resource if you do. It can really help people. One final caveat on this empower step, resist the temptation to make that call yourself. Okay? Sometimes when we're trying to be really helpful, we think, you know what, I'll just, the security guy is Ed, let me just give him a call real quick and tell him you're coming. I would advise not to do that. Again, this is about empowering that person. So you want them to be able to take the steps that they want to, when they want to. So give them the information, write it down, because again, their brains are still having the adrenaline, right? So write it down for them, let them take it with them, but don't make that phone call for them. And then the final step is return, okay? So give them a way to come back to you when they have more questions, are looking for more information, lost the piece of paper with Ed's phone number on it, right? The idea is just give them some easy way to know that you're still there, you don't disappear, right? So very simple, my door is always open. Or just send me an email anytime you want to talk more about this, or if you forget any of this, I'm always around, right? So just very, very simple. So the way that we handle these types of interaction can really mean the difference between a healthy workplace and a toxic one. I've given you a lot of information here, but these types of interactions can actually only last a few minutes. You can go through all 5 of these steps in just a few minutes. The key is to handle those few minutes well, because they really can make a huge difference over the long term. I did give you an acronym to help you remember when that adrenaline starts flooding your brain. Did anybody catch it? It's LASER, listen, acknowledge, share, empower, return. And the idea of that is to help you remember to stay laser focused on this person that you're interacting with, right? So when that brain chemistry gets started, just hold on to that through these steps, and you'll be able to really help the individual. So these things are going to help you, right? So you're going to be better at these interactions. You're going to be more comfortable with them, less afraid when somebody starts in on a story that's challenging. It's also going to help your organization, right? Because you're going to end up with a healthier workforce and hopefully stay out of the news and stay out of court. It helps our society, to be honest, and that's my main motivation for doing this work, as we all learn to get better at responding to these Me Too moments. And then finally, it helps the person who's in front of you, right? This person who has come to you in trauma. That individual does not want to stay where they are. They're coming to you for help. And if you can respond well and give them the help they need, that's going to allow them, one, to get further along on the path to healing, and second, to get back to work. And I think that's important for all of us, because I know all of us have a lot of important work to do. Thank you.